Hello and welcome to MBC News Hour. In the next 60 minutes, our reporters across the country will give us the latest in politics, business, entertainment and sports.
You're with me, Arthur Chokoto, alongside
Hiuda Ngomano.
And our sign language interpreter is Talson Kamalata. Glad you could join us. Let's take a look at the stories making headlines.
The governments of Malawi and Iceland signed a $12.9 million financial agreement aimed at supporting the improvement of basic services in some district councils. The SADC Interstate Politics and Diplomacy Committee meeting, currently underway in Salima, described as an opportunity to foster peace and democratic governance in the region. And in sports, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture to engage FTH Bank following the suspension of its sports-related sponsorships worth 7.5 billion kwacha.
Glad you could join us. The government of Malawi has signed a $12.9 million financial agreement with the government of Iceland, which will support the improvement of basic services in 3 district councils of Salima, Balaka and Machinga. The financial partnership, which is equivalent to 23 billion kwacha, was signed in Lilongwe by the Minister of Finance, Joseph Monamveka, and the Minister of Local Government, Ben Piri, on behalf of the government of Malawi. Austin Fukula reports.
The Minister of Finance, Joseph Monamveka, commended the government of Iceland for scaling up the basic services program for the 2 to 5 districts, saying this will improve access to social services such as health, education and clean water.
It's a signal that there is a good relationship between the government of Iceland and Malawi, and also it shows that they have confidence in the leadership of Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika. Obviously, we work closely with the government of Iceland. I know they have the capacity. They have already demonstrated that capacity to do more. I'm sure we'll be engaging them so that they can give us more resources.
Minister of Local Government, Ben Piri, assured the Icelandic government that his ministry will ensure effective implementation of the $12.9 million grant, equivalent to 23 billion kwacha, so that people in rural areas benefit fully.
In any sort of grant, accountability, transparency, efficiency and effectiveness has got to be deployed. We have done that, and I must be quick to mention that the local government of yesterday is not the local government of today. We had challenges, we learned from the challenges that we had yesterday, and we build from there to make sure that we don't let Malawians down.
The Iceland head of mission in Malawi, David Bayanason, said the program is performance-based, hence councils need to implement their work in a transparent and accountable manner.
We expect to see huge improvements in basic services delivery in the districts. We expect to see good performance in the implementation of the program, that we work together very hand in hand to deliver those services and to solve any challenges that may come. But in the end, it's about delivering, it's an expectations of service delivery on the ground, which will improve education, health, access to water and environmental aspects.
The scaling up of the basic services program between the governments of Malawi and Iceland follows the successful implementation of the initiative in Mangochi and Nkhotakota districts. Austin Fukula, MBC News, Lilongwe.
Minister of Gender, Children, Disability and Social Welfare, Mary Navicha, has called on Malawians to embrace self-reliance in order to reduce donor dependence in community development initiatives. Navicha said this in Lilongwe during the official launch of Community Development Month CDM initiative. Trinity Kapamtengo reports.
Navicha says the decline in self-help spirit experienced in the country of late has reduced community participation, ownership and sustainability of development activities. She added that without receiving money or food items, people are not maintaining their own roads, bridges, schools or managing catchment areas, which she said is worrisome. As such, the Community Development Month initiative stands to revive the spirit of self-help.
This is a powerful initiative where it empowers people to participate in various developmental projects in their areas. As you are aware that our roads are in dilapidated states and even bridges. I'm talking of roads to graveyards, roads to their homes, roads to villages. Time has come for us to take care of ourselves.
Besides the launch of a Community Development Month initiative, the Minister handed over a vehicle to the Department of Community Development and motorcycles to district councils to support the implementation by improving the mobility of officers in the district. Chief Community Development Officer for Kasongo District Council, Topse Kajere, commended the initiative, saying it will enhance coverage of their work.
For communities to be self-reliant, they need to be empowered and they feel that on their own they can do things on their own, developing their own communities. You know, self-help is key for sustainable development.
The beneficiary district councils include Branta, Kasongo, Nchinji, Kalonga, Machinga, Mangochi, Palombe and Chidiba. Trinity Kapantengo, MBC News, Lilongwe.
The construction of the Tuchira Bridge at Nkando in Mulanje is expected to be completed before the end of this year. The Minister of Transport, Japi Mhango, made the remarks during an inspection of the construction works on the bridge currently underway. Mercy Zamawa with the details.
Mhango acknowledged that the construction of the bridge faced delays due to heavy rains and the shortage of forex. He said Malawi has been going through economic challenges which the government is still working to resolve. He, however, added that the contractor currently working on the project has now been given about 5 billion kwacha to allow the work to continue.
People of Mulanje and surrounding districts have got every reason to complain. They are justified because the project has indeed delayed, but there have been factors that have contributed to the delay. We are coming from a very, very different background where the economy has been failing. The economy has not been performing, and so it has also been very difficult for government to meet its obligations, that is to pay our contractors on time. But now that we seem to be overcoming these problems, we've started paying contractors so much so that the contractor who is working on this Tuchira bridge has now been paid. He has already sourced some of the materials. Obviously, still having some problems with to access forex. As a ministry, we'll take it up with the Reserve Bank to make sure that the contractor is prioritized as forex is being allocated, to make sure that he completes this bridge by December, because that is now the cut-off point.
Meanwhile, the Director of Maintenance at the Roads Authority, Engineer Flora Hauya, said the project cost has been revised upwards to 8.9 billion kwacha from 7.7 billion kwacha due to the depreciation of the Malawi kwacha.
The progress is there. As you've seen, almost 3 spans are ready for doing the deck. What we are remaining with is the pier and the last abutment, which we are supposed to finish.
Speaking on the matter, Member of Parliament for Mulanje Pasani, Mariam Ajidu, said the damage of the bridge disrupted the movement of people and agricultural produce, as the bridge is located near a marketplace where people buy and sell goods.
It has been very challenging, as you can see the damages that are here. And you know, our people, they're using Nkando Road to sell their farm produce. So they usually use this road, and they can't cross because of the damages that were caused here because of Cyclone Freddy. So this development, it will help my people a lot.
Mike Construction Limited is the company carrying out the construction works of the bridge. Mercy Zamawa, MBC News, Mulanje.
Petroleum Importers Limited (PIL) has urged transporters and fuel tanker drivers to prioritize safety above speed in order to prevent loss of lives and property. PIL General Manager Martin Msmuko made the appeal during activities to mark World Day for Safety in Health at Work in Blantyre. We have a report.
Msimuko described transporters and fuel tanker drivers as the backbone of supply chain and stressed the importance of strictly adhering to safety measures at all times.
What we want is for our drivers to go and deliver the product safely. We know that behind them there are families that are waiting for them, and for us, for them to bring the product, even though we might want the product to come quicker, but we want them to prioritize their safety first so that we can bring the product into the country. We know that the roads that they travel in, there are so many pitfalls, there are so many hazards, and also communities that the product that they carry is flammable and is highly combustible, and therefore if it causes an accident, it can burn the whole area, which is why we have emphasized that they need to be safe so that they can protect themselves.
Regional Road Traffic Officer for the Department of Road Traffic Directorate Services for the South, Madariso Gunsalu, also urged petroleum transporters and drivers to, among others, ensure that their vehicles are always roadworthy, manage fatigue, and be aware of emergency and public risks after accidents.
Fuel tanker drivers are not just ordinary drivers. They carry cargo that is hazardous and risky as well. So that demands a lot of professionalism, it demands a lot of responsibility, and it also requires a lot of things, unlike the ordinary drivers, because a single accident involving a tanker driver, involving a tanker that is loaded with fuel cargo, can have very significant consequences to the driver and also to the community.
During the event, PIL also celebrated 0 accidents involving its petroleum tankers throughout 2025. George Banda, MBC News, Blantyre.
In the ongoing inquiry into the acquisition of Marilis Hotel by the Public Pensions Fund, Chairperson and Director of Yusuf Investments, who are the owners of the hotel, Shiraz Yusuf, refused to face the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament after he insisted that he should face the committee in camera. Yusuf, who turned up at Parliament for the interface in the morning, cited his personal safety, including threats of abduction, as the reason for refusing to appear live on media channels before the committee. Vice Chairperson of PAC, Tulinje Muluzi, said the reasons given by Yusuf were not convincing enough to grant him his wish. MBC caught up with Muluzi soon after the committee sent back Yusuf.
Yusuf came this morning, I think by 9, he was already here, and he was asking to have the interface meeting in camera, of which, as you're aware, for all the past stakeholders whom we have been meeting, we've been meeting them live. So it was not fair for other stakeholders, since if you recall the Attorney General, we met him live. So why not Yusuf? So that's why we said, no, we're not allowing you to have the meeting in camera.
What was his reason?
His reason is receiving threats from the public, and which to us, it was not solid, and which he never brought solid evidence to the committee on that.
The issues that they had raised about kidnappings and them reporting to police, and they gave the evidence when the committee deliberated, they thought that it was a weak argument for them not to appear, because we also have a responsibility to make sure that the public is aware of what is happening. As such, we refused to grant that particular hearing in camera. For that reason, they also said they would walk away, which they have done, and therefore, as Parliament, we have noted that there is a contempt of Parliament, and therefore the issue will be reported to the Speaker, and who will give proper guidance, and also our legal team, because I think their legal counsel raised some 4 key objections. The key objections about our jurisdiction as a committee, saying that we do not have jurisdiction over a private entity like Yusuf Limited. And let's make the record very clear here. The only institution that was given authority to conduct this interview in camera was the Financial Intelligence Authority, and their justification was to the fact that they were still conducting the investigations. As such, we granted them. But anyone else who is involved in this transaction, who is going to appear before the Public Accounts Committee, will appear live.
The Malawi Judiciary has honored departed judges, magistrates and lawyers who died recently. The event was held in Blantyre on Wednesday during a memorial court sitting. Chief Justice Rezin Mzikamanda described the departed judicial members as a team of dedicated professionals who served their nation with distinction. Charles Chindongo was there and filed this report, read in our studios by Telson Magombo.
Family members of the departed lawyers, magistrates and judges joined the memorial court sitting on Wednesday in Blantyre in honor of 17 foreign legal minds. Speaking on behalf of the Chief Justice, Chisomo Nsogera, Registrar of the High Court, underscored the importance of the event.
The legal profession is a practice, and so you accumulate a lot of experience with the years that you have been either on the bench, that is for judicial officers, or on the bar, that is for legal practitioners. So our colleagues who departed had accumulated quite a lot of experience, and so this sitting we remember their contribution to the legal profession, but also we want to emulate the example which they left to us. Although we are no longer with them, but we have their records. So this memorial sitting reminds us of the need that in time and again we need to go back to those particular records and learn from their wisdom.
Head of the bar, who is also the country's Attorney General, Frank Farouk Mbeta, described the departed colleagues as the ones who were dedicated to duty.
The praise that you've heard about them represents the very spirit in which ordinarily lawyers and magistrates and judges are expected to perform their duties in order to save the interest of justice and also to ensure the development of the law to the benefit of the nation. So it is incumbent upon us that are still living to emulate the good example, the selflessness, the integrity, the dignity, and the hard work in which our fallen colleagues discharge their duties.
Echoing his sentiments is Malawi Law Society President Davis Njovu.
Here to celebrate the departed lawyers, men and women, and the lessons are plenty, because these are people who dedicated themselves. As we have heard, some of them were judges, some of them were magistrates, and then you had various members of the legal profession practicing the law in different fields. And when you look back, you see that there were people who were committed, and there were people who did a lot. Maybe within a very short time, their contributions are quite a lot. And it inspires those of us who are remaining to emulate them.
Among other renowned members of bar and the bench who were honored this year include His Worship Soka Banda, Kandako Mhone, Professor Mgei Kanyongolo, Daliso Mtambo, and Raf Kasambara. The last memorial sitting was held in 2023.
It has emerged that Queen Elizabeth Centre Hospital has gone for nearly 2 years without offering family planning methods, a situation which health authorities have attributed to the pulling out of donors in the reproductive health sector. Head of Gynecology and Obstetrics at the facility, Dr. Dingase Kumwenda, suggests that the situation could be linked to the growing cases of post-abortion care services which the hospital is handling. Temba Mali has filed this report.
The head of Gynecology and Obstetrics at Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital,
Dr. Dingani Kumwenda says the supply of contraceptive pills and other family planning methods has been absent due to funding challenges.
It's indeed true that for the past few years or so, we have had struggles accessing family planning commodities, and that also includes pills. This has been so because those who were supporting these services in the past have withdrawn their support, especially USAID through different non-government organizations as well as through the Ministry of Health. So indeed in that regard, there have been some gaps in our clients accessing all the family planning commodities that they desire.
The situation comes at a time there is an apparent rise in unplanned pregnancies, evident in a high number of post-abortion complications the facility handles. According to Dr. Kumwenda, the facility sees at least 180 patients with complications arising from induced or accidental abortions. Dr. Kumwenda says there is a direct link between the absence of family planning methods and the surge in post-abortion complication cases.
It is indeed true. We have large volumes of patients that access our post-abortal care, whether it's intended or spontaneous abortions that have occurred. So per month, as of 2025, would see not less than 180 patients in a month that would require post-abortal care services.
Patso Ngurube, a health advocate who is also the executive director of the health department in the CCAP Synod of Livingstonia, observes that amidst declining donor support, there is urgent need for the country to come up with self-sustaining means on reproductive health services.
It's a very dire situation, and it is a situation whereby as a country we need to be thinking of prioritizing that as well in our budgets, because as we make the country budgets, the family planning methods should be part of that. Otherwise, we are going to end up in a very bad situation.
Another health expert, Professor Adamson Moula, says there is nothing wrong with Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital not providing family planning methods because it is a referral facility which is supposed to be handling referral and critical cases only.
The provision of contraceptives should not be a priority for Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be able to provide, but rather the services under Blantyre District Council, the levels that I mentioned, health centers, dispensaries, health posts, community, and the health centers are the places where contraceptive services ought to be provided.
Abortion remains illegal in Malawi, though there are growing calls from advocates to have it legalized, especially where the life of the mother or that of the child is at risk. Temba Mwale, MBC, Blantyre.
You're watching News Hour here on MBC. Still to come, we join our colleagues at our Lilongwe studio, plus the latest business and sports news. And Rover top stories.
The governments of Malawi and Iceland signed a $12.9 million financial agreement aimed at supporting the improvement of basic services in some district councils. The SADC Interstate Politics and Diplomacy Committee meeting, currently underway in Salima, described as an opportunity to foster peace and democratic governance in the region. And in sports, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture to engage FTH Bank following the suspension of its sports-related sponsorships worth 7.5 billion kwacha. Welcome back. Let's now join our colleagues in Lilongwe for the latest updates from the Central Region.
From our Area 4 studios in Lilongwe, welcome to this segment of News Hour. You're with me, Patience Mapando, and my colleague,
Patrick Dambula.
Straight to our first story. Chief Secretary to the government, Justin Saidi, has described the ongoing SADC Interstate Politics and Diplomacy Committee meeting as an opportunity to reflect on peace and democratic governance and to provide clear political guidance on these matters. Speaking during the meeting in Salima, Saidi said the forum has been convened against the backdrop of evolving political and security dynamics in the SADC region. Catherine Banda reports.
Chief Secretary to the government, Justin Saidi, said the meeting is an annual event that provides strategic direction on politics, diplomacy, and democratic governance in the SADC region. He noted that while the region continues to register progress in consolidating peace and democratic governance, it still faces challenges that require urgent and coordinated attention. Additionally, the Chief Secretary indicated that the outcome of the deliberations will contribute to strengthening regional cooperation in governance, diplomacy, peace building, stability, and development. He said SADC countries need to work together and speak with one voice, emphasizing the importance of meeting regularly to address regional issues. He added that challenges affecting one country ultimately impact others in the region.
I'm looking for a concerted effort among members, ensure that they work as a unit, because they were planning for now meeting of ministers. Because after this organ, then there comes ministers meeting within the region. So they are like a strategy team planning for the ministers. And in the end, ministers will be planning for heads of states. So for us to live as a community, we need to be working together, plan together, ensure that where there are challenges, where there are problems, those challenges are sorted out right there.
Director of the Organ on Politics, Defense and Security Affairs at the SADC Secretariat, Professor Kula Ishmael Teritani, said the conflicts in some parts of the world have an impact on the SADC region, underscoring the need for early resolution of governance-related issues. He emphasized the importance of unity among SADC member states in ensuring regional safety and stability.
It is important for us to keep peace. It is important for us to respect the democratic rules and governance, and especially when we hold our elections. Look, SADC is affected by, if you look at what is happening now in Iran, how it affects SADC region, it affects quite a number of countries. I'm sure even here in Malawi you are feeling it with the increase in petrol price, issues of elections. If we don't deal with those issues, they have a way to escalate. And if you don't deal with them now, you might have to send a military at a later stage, which is going to be too costly. We have to deal with these issues of governance at an early stage to prevent, and elections are very sensitive, so that you prevent conflicts from emerging, because if you don't do that, you might have a country regressing back into conflicts.
The meeting brought together principal secretaries from 14 SADC countries, with Comoros and the Democratic Republic of Congo not in attendance. Catherine Banda, MBC News, Salima.
Government has called on veterinary professionals in Malawi to always work together to protect the lives and welfare of animals in the country. Director of Animal Health and Livestock in the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Julius Chulu, was speaking in Lilongwe during the Malawi Veterinary Association MVA Annual Conference and General Meeting 2026. Chulu said Malawi is making strides to ensure that the lives of animals are protected so that the country can increase animal production for economic transformation. Maeso Chikadzula has the details in this report.
During the annual general meeting, Dr. Chulu urged veterinary professionals and other stakeholders to work together in addressing the challenges facing livestock production in the country. Chulu said government is working tirelessly to ensure that Malawi becomes a self-reliant nation in the production of livestock and other animal-based products. He also held various partners for supporting the growth of the veterinary professionals in Malawi.
Profession is in collaboration
Government cannot go it alone. Private sector cannot go it alone. We want to work together. Academia, farmers, private veterinarians, animal scientists, even local district councils, everybody else, to make sure one day Malawi is a country that is safe in locally produced livestock and livestock products.
Professor Adam Torre, Chair of Journal of Veterinary Practice at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, who is attending the conference, hailed Malawi for its commitment to protecting animal health. Torre said it is encouraging to note that the veterinary profession is growing at a good pace in Malawi.
And Malawi itself has now grown so many vets of its own volition. It's now probably one of the leading, I would say it's the most exponentially growing in terms of animal welfare, commerce for the animals, for the community, and for the whole of society.
Member of the Malawi Veterinary Association, Peter Mware, said the annual general meeting will help the organization to reflect on its activities for the betterment of animal health, welfare, and people.
This AGM is very important for us. It brings almost together all the veterinarians within the country to discuss issues related to our profession. We have got different sectors. Some are within the government, others are within the private sectors, others are with the non-governmental organizations. So each and every stakeholder is bringing in the experience to share what we are experiencing, in as much as taking care of animals out there is concerned.
The 2026 Malawi Veterinary Association MVA annual conference and general meeting is being held under the theme Advancing Veterinary Practice and Livestock Health in Malawi through evidence, collaboration, and professional leadership. Maesoji Kadzula, MBC News, Lilongwe.
Of late, the country has been experiencing an increase in street-connected children, with most of them associated with criminal activities. However, some of these children are striving to reverse this trend in their quest for survival. Our reporter Lonjezom Sodoka took time to engage some street-connected children in the capital, Lilongwe, whose struggles and achievements reflect both the harsh realities they face and the resilience they demonstrate in overcoming them. We have the details.
A survey conducted by Chisomo Children's Club in 2015 revealed that over 4,000 children were living on the streets, and 88% of these children had parents but could not provide proper care to them. The report further revealed that family breakdown and poverty are among the major factors pushing children into the streets. As a result, they are exposed to numerous challenges, including lack of food, shelter, education, as well as sexual exploitation. Franklin Kwanda left Kasungu at the age of 16 for Lilongwe, where he survived through pieceworks at the Lilongwe bus depot. He could pose as a passenger boarding a bus, helping the bus to fill quickly. With that cash, he paid for his own school fees until he was recognized by One Step Foundation and was taken to a rehabilitation center. Eventually, Frank scored 17 points in MSCE and now in third year at Luana, studying education science. His story testifies that determination and support can transform the lives of street-connected children.
I never realized that one day I'll be a student at Luana. I've just been noticing some meetings by officials from the rehabilitation center discussing about me because I was just determined to go to school.
Luce Semani, now 19 years old and a mother of 2, found herself living on the streets at the age of 6 following the separation of her parents. She told this reporter that after the breakup, she had no one to depend on. From that moment, she started to beg for survival. According to Luce, life on the streets has exposed her to abuse. Luce says she is now all grown and ashamed to beg. Rather, sells bananas for a living, with the streets still being her home. She is appealing to the government and well-wishers for financial support to help her start a proper business so she can build a better future for herself and her children. Being on the streets has exposed me to many forms of abuse, such as being forced into situations against my will. Sometimes I get arrested and sometimes I have no food. I would like to start a business like selling second-hand clothes or any other business so that I can support myself and my children. I don't want my children to go through what I have experienced.
According to Executive Director for One Step Foundation, Moses Malabu, the organization has been actively rescuing children from the streets since 2020, reuniting some with their families and enrolling others in rehabilitation centers where they access education and gain technical skills. He said that since the launch of the initiative in 2020, a total of 67 street-connected children have been enrolled in public universities.
Street life is not street environment. It's not a good place for somebody to cherish that I've been in the street. And for myself, I used to say that I've been into the street because I know it's a way of motivating others, because I can no longer find myself into the street because I've changed. I'm a graduate and I went to school.
Commenting on the development, Minister of Gender, Children, Disability and Social Welfare, Mary Navicha, expressed a government commitment to supporting street-connected children across the country by ensuring they receive proper support and care.
We are also integrating these kids because some of them have parents, but some of them are child-headed families. So those that have parents, we are going to integrate them so that they will stay with their parents and will support the parents. We have a number of programs like social cash transfer. So the parents will be on social cash transfer so that they will be able to take care of their children.
The stories of Lucy and Frank are just part of many that highlight the urgent need for collaboration in promoting the welfare of street-connected children in the country. Their stories show that when partners work together, they can help rebuild many lives of many street-connected children in the country, transform their future for the better, and make the streets safer for the citizens. Lonjezon Sodoka, MBC News, Lilongwe.
Deputy Minister of Health and Sanitation Charles Chilambula has called for increased partnerships in the health sector to help Malawi achieve its health sector strategic plan. The plan aims to improve healthy outcomes by increasing access to quality service delivery and enhancing patient satisfaction by 2030. He made the remarks at Kamuzu Central Hospital in Lilongwe, where the Czech Republic was handing over assorted medical supplies. We have details in this report by Mpatso Mataya, read in our studios by Margaret Mapando.
Chilambula said the donated items will help reduce the challenges the hospital is currently facing, noting that Kamuzu Central Hospital serves about 43% of the country's population, which puts pressure on available resources. He added that the donation from the Czech Republic, particularly to the maternity and cardiology departments, will enhance maternal and child health by increasing equitable access to and improving the quality of healthcare services.
We are very grateful to the government of Czech Republic for the assistance because these equipment that Kamuzu Central Hospital has been lacking, especially in the areas of gynecology. So there are a lot of equipment which has come, amounting to $200,000. People will be assisted on time and given the quality care, so we can even reduce mortality and give quality health service.
Head of Cooperation for the Czech Republic stressed the strong partnership between his country and Malawi. He pledged continued support to the health sector through the provision of medical scholarships and professional training to improve service delivery.
This is one of first donations that the Czech aid has done to Malawi and follows a duly run process of identification based on the needs assessment from the Kamuzu Central Hospital, and we would strongly believe that upon such a good cooperation, Czech aid will continue working hand in hand on development as well as humanitarian aspects with government of Malawi.
The donated items, valued at $230,000, approximately 400 million kwacha, include equipment for the cardiology department, hospital beds and other essential maternity care tools aimed at improving service delivery.
That's how we conclude this segment of News Hour from our Area 4 studios in Lilongwe. You've been with me, Patience Mapando, and my colleague,
Patrick Dambula.
Thank you for watching, and we're handing you back to Kwacha Studios in Blantyre.
Well, many thanks to our Lilongwe team for that update. Now, the University of Malawi, UNIMA, says it is geared to devising programs that respond well to global demands. Vice Chancellor for UNIMA, Professor Samson Sajidu, made the remarks in Zomba when the university awarded degrees to the first ever cohort of about 20 students who have graduated with Bachelor of Early Childhood Development ECD program. Charles Pensulo reports.
Speaking during the graduation ceremony in Zomba, Professor Sajidu said UNIMA has become the first public university in Malawi to offer Bachelors of Early Childhood Development ECD program. According to Professor Sajidu, the introduction of the program is one of the progresses the higher learning institution has made so far.
Indeed, I did mention a number of achievements that we have made since our last graduation. Some of them include our increase in the number of programs that we are offering, and as I did mention that this is the first time we are graduating students who are taking the program in early childhood development.
The event was graced by Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Ken Ndala, who said the development aligns well with the current administration's agenda of improving early childhood education.
If you can actually recall in the speech by His Excellency the President, he mentioned the idea of us as Minister of Education focusing on pre-primary education. Now the Early Childhood Development Program, it is one of the programs that is going to be able to enhance the production of caregivers.
And Esther Chipanda is one of the students who have graduated with a Bachelor of Early Childhood Development. She said her motives are to bring awareness to communities about the importance of early childhood development.
My contributions to the world mostly will focus on children's well-being, particularly in rural areas, because children in rural areas are facing a lot of challenges in terms of education and nutrition.
The 20 students who graduated on ECD were among 880 graduates who have received certificates, diplomas, and degrees in various fields. Out of the total number, 402 were females, while 480 were males. Charles Pensulo, MPC News, Zomba.
Well, let's move to the business segment where Elaine Chimoyo is on standby.
Thank you very much, and we start with the news that the country has managed to earn over $4.8 million from its first week of the 2026 tobacco selling season. These earnings are mainly from contract tobacco, which is enjoying significant sales unlike open auction tobacco. At the close of business on Friday, over 2.2 million kilograms of the leaf was sold at an average price of $2.13. However, high rejection rate is still a major challenge, which has seen the Minister of Agriculture as well as the Tobacco Commission engaging in ongoing talks with the buyers as well as grower representatives. And FDH Bank PLC has underscored that it remains focused on expanding its footprint beyond Malawi. FDH Bank Managing Director Noah Nkuliji disclosed as the bank held its investor forum where it highlighted its strong financial performance for the year 2025. The bank has posted a profit after tax of 147.796 billion kwacha, representing a 100% increase from 74.063 billion kwacha recorded in 2024.
As you are aware, Malawi is now into mining. There are stories around in terms of what minerals we have, and it is on that basis that we thought we also need to go into that because it's an opportunity area. So as we stand, what we intend to do is partner with what is called Malawi Mining and Investment Company. Mamico is a government entity. What they want to do is manage issues to do with the gold, and our intention is to cooperate with them, to partner with them. The arrangement will be such that all miners will be placed in cooperatives, and it is those cooperatives that we are going to be handling. So what will happen is that as soon as they mine gold, they'll come straight to the branches, the different branches that are spread across Malawi, and then immediately we give value for that gold, and they get credit for that. So it is on that basis that we believe this is the right way to go, and it is something that is going.
Now, a local chocolatier is calling on commercial farmers in the country to take advantage of the available export markets for cocoa to grow the crop. Currently, the country is able to produce the cocoa bean in volumes not more than 15 tons, despite ready export markets for the same. Cocoa bean is highly produced in West African countries, supplying to Europe and world top chocolate producing nations such as Switzerland, Belgium and France. But for a Malawian young entrepreneur, Wezi Nzumara, venturing into this unlikely business has proved to be worthwhile. Speaking to MBC in our Date A program, Nzumara of Kwaza Cocoa said Malawi should start looking at its cocoa bean industry as a viable export earning field.
I would love to see a lot more cocoa farmers in Malawi. Currently, we are only exporting estimates 12 tons of cocoa. When you have Ghana, Ivory Coast, Nigeria doing 234,000 tons. So our customer 12,000 tons in Malawi is so minimal. So what I'd like to see is more farmers getting engaged, more farmers coming on board. I love the fact now that we're working with a lot more existing farmers who are based in Karonga, and all their cocoa has been going across the border into Tanzania. So I love the fact that we now have a specific team who now does door-to-door with the farmers, gets to know them, understand what their challenges are. So also as Kwanza Cocoa, as an off-taker, we can also work with them and understand what their needs are and grow together. The importance about developing a business in Malawi is you can't do it as an island. You must always grow together.
According to the Kwaza team, currently there are efforts being made to popularize the cultivation of cocoa trees. As of May 2024, over 6,000 trees of the crop had been grown in 10 districts that include Nkata Bay, Rumpi, Kasungu, Digoma, Neno, Blantyre and Tiolo. With such seemingly unconventional agro-ventures, Malawi can manage to achieve import substitution for the arguably luxurious treat, chocolate that is. Other non-conventional crops with ready markets beyond the borders include macadamia nuts, cashew nuts and sesame. Well, that's all from the business desk. It's back to you.
Well, many thanks to Elin Chimoyo for that business update. And for the latest in the world of sports, let's join Norbert Jameson.
Welcome to the sports segment. The Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture says it will engage FDH Bank following the suspension of its sports-related sponsorships with 7.5 billion kwacha. The suspension comes after incidents that led to the failed launch of the FDH Bank Premiership at Kamuzu Stadium on Saturday. Ministry spokesperson Macmillan Male says they will also involve the Football Association of Malawi and the Super League of Malawi to resolve the misunderstandings.
As Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, indeed we are worried and we are concerned with that development, because if you look at FDH, is really a strong partner as far as the sports is concerned in the country. It's not only for football, but also you look at netball as well as the Mayor's Trophy, which is the grassroots. Currently we are focusing much on the grassroots where they are also supporting. So we should be able to be reaching out to them to discuss and find an amicable way of resolving the matter so that the sports development in the country should not be affected. So as a policy holder, we are on the forefront and committed to engage the bank so that we can find a common ground. We are above all this as a policy holder. So we need to bring different stakeholders. You remember, our stakeholders, we look at Malawi National Council of Sports there. There is the Football Association of Malawi, SULOM, even the bank. These are our strong stakeholders that are contributing to sports development in the country. So we should be able to be reaching out to all of them and see how we can proceed. We hear from them, they hear from us, then we come to a consensus as one family, as one sector.
FDH Bank also sponsors the FDH Bank Netball Premiership and the Mayor's Trophy. We spoke to Netball Association of Malawi President Vitumbiko Gubuduza and Malawi Schools Sports Association General Secretary Crispin Nyasuru for their reactions.
As NAM, we will proactively reach out to FDH to engage constructively in the coming week and seek a resolution that safeguards the continued growth and stability of netball in Malawi, and how best we can also support and safeguard the FDH brand image. I think that probably what has happened is a lesson for all of us on how best we manage our sponsor's brand. We will also reach out to FAM, SULOM, and the ministry too, if possible and where appropriate, just to support the initiatives that are currently underway to make sure that FDH Bank comes back to the sports fraternity and proceed with the various sponsorships generally in sports. We do remain hopeful that all outstanding issues with our brother association relating to these issues will be resolved swiftly in the best interest of the sport, but also netball in particular.
Definitely is going to hit Massa hardly if they can go ahead with a withdrawal of the sponsorship. But luckily enough, they have said they have just suspended the sponsorship, which means they are looking at the avenues where they can think of withdrawing or moving on with the sponsorship to other associations. So Massa is just on the corner there, waiting patiently to see how it is going to be resolved. To us as Massa, I would like to ask all the stakeholders involved in the running of sport, especially football in Malawi, just to have a consensus. They should have to sit down, do the pros and cons. They should look into the positivities and then iron out the issues that are bringing back or which have delayed some of the progress in football in Malawi. We may think of the suspension which has been declared by FDH. If they can move forward and say we are completely withdrawing, that would be a very big blow, not only to Massa, but to Football Association of Malawi, NAM, and these primary schools which are playing a Mayor's Trophy in the cities of this country. It would be a very big blow.
The Super League of Malawi, SULOM, has complied with the Football Association of Malawi's directive not to allocate league matches at the banned Kamuzu Stadium in Blantyre. SULOM has scheduled the FC Binyasa Big Bullets vs Mafco match for Joyce Chitsulo Stadium in Mwanza on Sunday. This will be the first time for the facility to host an elite league match. Bullets' primary home ground is Kamuzu Stadium, but the club has chosen the Mwanza-based facility as its alternative venue. To some netball news, the Malawi Under-23 national netball team beat Sunbirds 58-39 in the Telkom Netball League in Durban, South Africa today. The Queen's Caps have now registered 4 wins from 5 games. Malawi's next match is against Diamonds on Thursday.
Winning 4 games from 5 is a great improvement because our mission was to win all the games, but we've lost 1. But that doesn't push us back. That was the game which has made us to pull up our socks to focus on which areas we are like having more errors or having more turnovers. So with today's game, the girls played well, even though we have done some turnovers as well. But at least we have minimized the turnovers. So with the performance of today, we still need to improve or polish up some areas like ball placement. We made a lot of misplacing the passes. So if we can work on that and defending more, and the shooters, whenever they get a ball inside or close to the goal post, they should really make sure that it has to be a goal. So with today's performance, we are happy and we're focusing on our next game. So I thank the girls for giving it all on today's game, and I'm happy with the results.
And that's a wrap inside the sports segment as we hand you back to our main anchors.
Well, would have loved to stay, but then time is not on our side.
It's not. We really need to go.
So, with that item, we conclude this edition of News Hour. A reminder of our top stories before we leave.
The governments of Malawi and Iceland signed a $12.9 million financial agreement aimed at supporting the improvement of basic services in some district councils. The SADC Interstate Politics and Diplomacy Committee meeting, currently underway in Salima, described as an opportunity to foster peace and democratic governance in the region. And in sports, Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture to engage FDH Bank following the suspension of its sports-related sponsorships worth 7.5 billion kwacha. Keep up to date with our news coverage on our digital pages by scanning the QR code at the top right corner of your TV screen. You were with me, Hilda Ngomano, alongside
Arthur Chokoto, and our sign language interpreter tonight was Tauson Kamalata. From the entire teammates, thanks for watching. Bye for now.
School's out. Fun